But as we love to do, we cover the full tennis spectrum on this show. And a man who I've had on the show, had correspondence with across the journey, meet him in person for the first time tonight. And he's like a lot of you out there listening tonight, doing the hard yards down at the emerging level. I mean, this is a sport that obviously has got a lot of budding, aspiring tennis players who would dream of maybe being in Paris, being at centre court at Wimbledon or the Australian Open or wherever the case may be. John Paci, Power Tennis, of course, which is out in Rowville in Melbourne's southeast. John, great to have you in. Nice to meet you for the first time.
It's a pleasure, Brett. And I tell you what, being upgraded from the phone interview and being in the studio, I feel like that's how you know you're doing some good things.
No, you're doing some good things. And you're earning your dollars at the moment because coaching in the middle of winter, you know, you're putting in some hard yards, a few layers.
It's tough. The puffer jackets are out. We're keeping warm, but we didn't wash out today. So that's a huge win.
Yeah, I felt a little bit for state grade, and we'll have an update later on. Tennis Victoria State grade, we normally have a guest on every week, but they had a washout. I think maybe their third washout for the year. I mean, sometimes you can just get cruel winters, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have it good in summer down here. But yeah, once you get to the middle of July, my goodness, it's tough. But I suppose athletes can learn something from that, right? Being in tough environments.
No doubt. I mean, tennis builds resilient characters, John.
That's it. You've got to find the positives always.
Tell us about the John Paci journey. For those that haven't heard you or come across you, you're a young man, but you've done a lot.
Yeah, I'm blessed. I think when I was a little bit younger, I didn't feel that way. Probably found out at around 15, 16 that I wasn't going to be the player I wanted to be. You know, being 5'8" didn't help. So yeah, got into coaching from about 14, 9 months, 15 years old, and started doing that out in the northern suburbs in Bundoora with GP Tennis, John Hampson. Shout out to Johnny. And then just fell in love with coaching. Got my qualifications through Tennis Australia, and then sort of got into the high performance pathway sometime over the last 5 years. So very much still in clubland, but exploring how to work in that high performance space.
So give us a bit of a feel of life out in clubland. I mean, obviously this show has been based out of Melbourne for the past 15, 16 years, but, you know, we talk to all parts of Australia, but I probably have a more intimate knowledge of what's sort of happening here. But, you know, we talk about the big names in the sport and they're earning, you know, millions and millions of dollars, but this is a huge ecosystem. So those who are trying the ITF tour, some are going down the college pathway. There are those here in Melbourne who are playing at different levels, and state grade as a competition has allowed some players who maybe don't have the travelling international aspirations to still play at a really good level on a Saturday afternoon. But just give us a feel of life out there in the suburbs.
It's really funny. I was speaking to a friend the other day. I feel like if people had the understanding of the quality of player we have in clubland, if we compare it to football for a second, you know, you can have some Division 3 footballers running out there and still there's 200 people watching and enjoying it, as there should be. Whereas we've got some players in Melbourne who are, like you just said, you know, playing the level of their ITF level, their entry-level professionals. And we've got them running out there in Rowville on a Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. So, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And I think, people just need to, people probably just haven't been educated in other sports. It's just not it's not a mainstream sport in a lot of ways like that. But my goodness, the quality we've got at the moment is really exciting.
We'll talk about a few names shortly, but Power, P-O-W-A Tennis, tell us about the emergence of, obviously the tennis business that you work in and how much it's grown. You've got, I think, 10 players with UTR 9+ experience at the moment. So players, you know, both training with you guys. They're travelling across Melbourne as part of squads. So take us inside Power Tennis.
Yeah, we're really blessed at Power. Stefan set up a really good business model where I like to think you come in and it feels like a community club, but we're a community club with a really strong performance pathway. So we've put a lot of things in place to encourage, obviously, you know, the beginner community players to come in, but also we've sort of established ourselves as a bit of a high performance club. So like you mentioned, we've got on our Friday pro squad alone, we've got just about 10 players now with UTR 9+, which everyone listening on this station will understand. I think what that feat is. That these are guys and girls who are either about to be or have already played some college tennis. We've got a young guy named Sam Deneen over in Scotland at the moment playing state grade pennant in their level. So we've really built up a beautiful program.
So how do some players who are not quite on the that sort of next radar just yet, but how do they then get the opportunities to go from sort of Melbourne clubland to having opportunities, for example, to go and travel overseas?
Well, I think social media is a wonderful thing. To be able to jump on Instagram and send some videos around to coaches in other countries or colleges is a really big thing that maybe people don't realize or don't utilize enough. So we've definitely got the social media space. We've got some links as well with some clubs in Europe, in Rome in particular, and just the whole college pathway now, as you mentioned, is so accessible. The college coaches reach out to us wanting players to get over there, which, for a young Melburnian whose parents have invested money, the idea of heading over to the States for 4 years, getting a degree and playing something like 60 to 100 matches a season is incredible.
Yeah, we've got an interview a little bit later on, Jen Dong, who, of course, has been over at LSU, made his first semi-final on the ITF Tour across the weekend. We had him on our podcast, Play USA, last year, but we've caught up with him in the second hour tonight. It's all about making these little breakthroughs, isn't it? Because it's tough out there. You go to Monastir in Tunisia, you've got to roll the sleeves up, John. Sometimes you've got to go through qualifying to get into qualifying into the actual main draw.
Oh, absolutely. And if I can give one more of my guys a shout out, Harnavul Kase, who I'm working with at the moment, about 400 hours a week. He's doing a ridiculous amount of training. He's one of those young boys. He backed himself last year, went to China for 3 months, had a couple of really good losses. We love to learn from losses. And then, had that breakthrough, got a qualifying win and came home with 1 ATP point. And then the way of the world, unfortunately, at the moment, it costs a lot to travel. So he was unable to get over there and defend his point this year. That probably speaks more to how difficult it is.
So how does that work in that sense? When you maybe haven't quite at this stage got some sort of TA backing financially for a young man, is he purely dependent on that parental support, other means of funding to get him on the road and get obviously more exposure?
Well, he'll love hearing this because I do give it to him at training. So Harnavul, we love you. He's a very hard worker. So he'll come into training at 11 a.m., train for 4 hours flat out, and then he'll go and coach the little 5-year-olds, do some hot shots coaching. So it's a lot of that. It's a lot of anything they can do to scrape some money together. And that's not just him. That's just the reality of that level. You're 18 trying to travel the world. It's hard. And then us as coaches, we do what we can to support him and players that are, showing the commitment. So,
any other names you want to throw in? 'Cause I know you've had multiple players sort of returning from some overseas trips, so they've had a few breakthroughs.
Yeah, so a shout out in particular to 2 of our younger boys who have just finally taken that step to the ITF level on the junior scale. So we've got Artie Pai and Ryan Yee. Both just came back from 2 separate ITF tournaments and got their first round wins, which is just an incredible achievement. So another example of these young athletes out there don't need to feel like if they're not overseas now they're missing out, because the quality of training here is working.
John Paci is my special guest in the studio from Power Tennis out in Rowville, and a long time, of course, in the coaching game. We were just talking before the break, John, about a lot of the young players that you're guiding and coaching. They're taking up a great sport, the sport we call the sport for life, where as long as you're breathing and upright, you can play this sport as long as you possibly can. But for those that have got some aspirations, who get into that sort of more high performance area and they're a teenager, I want to take my tennis somewhere, what are the type of conversations that you have? Because without repeating myself over and over on this show, I always mention that it is enter at your own risk. It is like setting up a business. Expenses, you're hoping to get some income, but we know at those lower levels of the tour, the income isn't going to be really setting on your path unless you can absolutely dominate the sport and really get on a tear and win. The expectations and managing those?
Yeah, it's funny because I've had a lot of conversations about this, and I know a lot of coaches. I think it's a good thing. Every coach is so different, but for me, that is the first point. I'll sit down with an athlete and their parents, and you'll ask them, what's your goal? What are your aspirations? And the first thing they'll say is, I want to make it. I want to get to the top. And I think it's just literally from that point, understanding, well, what is making it and what is the top for you? We have this, I don't know, I think it's just we're all competitive people. Making it means I want to be number 1 in the world, top 10 in the world. So it's a matter of, I think, being realistic and realizing that that's very unlikely to happen. There's 10 people in the world that are going to have that. So I think as soon as a young athlete and their parents, this is a huge part of the journey, as you'd be aware, as soon as they are on board with, we're going to shoot for the moon, this is our ultimate goal, top 100, top 1,000, whatever our figures are, but then realize that if we deviate and we land on a star, it's still a win. So yeah, managing those expectations and just constantly shifting the goalposts, which can be a dangerous space because some people would consider that failure, but we fail 50 times a day, right? In every part of life. So understanding you're going to fail a lot, it's just about continuing to get up and, if time's running out on that journey to make it to a certain goal, we just shift because there's plenty of avenues in tennis.
So different pathways. There's never just one.
Yeah.
We talk about the college pathway a bit on this show. To me, the more I hear about it, it feels like a no-brainer. But there are those who maybe haven't got the patience to go, I'm going to go to college for 4 years. I just want to go as a 17-year-old and hit the tour and take it on and see how I go.
Yep.
Those who have gone to college seem to come out of it with this well-rounded experience. So they're playing a high volume. They're getting an education. I think Adam Walton's just a great story out of that. 23, 24, comes out with a lot of miles in the legs. He's built a physical game, technically well set up, and maybe coming into the game a little more mature. And look where he skyrocketed. Have you got a view on that about the best pathway?
I think you're spot on. College for me, maybe a lot of Australian coaches a few years ago was a little bit of almost foreign. Like we just didn't understand a lot about it. But you're right. It really is a no-brainer now for that sort of, firstly, that sort of academic young person. There's a lot of tennis players out there like myself who didn't excel in the classroom too much, and the thought of doing that for 4 years might be too far out of their comfort zone. But I think if you're built for that, or you can train yourself on the academic side to be ready for that, at the very worst case, you're coming out super fit with a degree. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing. So for our Aussies now to have so much access to it, I'm working with 2 boys at the moment. I've told them, just go on a tour, at least try it, because I think there'll be a lot of players that miss that boat now that regret it in a few years.
So I've talked about the juniors. You also got some older players as part of your programs.
We do. So we're really blessed. We got this another shout out. I promised I'd give him this one. Jordan Cowling, who is he's a bit of a journeyman, sort of. He was quite a good junior. He's still probably one of the best players in our high-performance squad, which will really annoy the young guys because he's in his 30s now. And having guys like him around who have firstly done the college circuit but just done high-performance tennis, it's good because we can tell the athletes all we want as coaches, but sometimes you just need someone who's still kind of living it or who has lived it recently. So guys like him and Yuri, who are, I think he got to top 80 in the over 30s division on the ITF tour. He's the sort of guy you play him on a grass court tournament and you call in sick or something. He's an absolute machine.
His last name? Yuri
Midgic.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A beautiful man. Super calm.
Yep.
Yeah. So just having a few guys like that in our programs, we find really helps with the young guys. Just the level heads, the experience. But they can turn on the competitive spirit when they want to. Yeah,
nice. So when those guys still want to play at a good level, they're obviously being a bit older now, have realised sort of where they sit in this big tennis ecosystem, but a sport you can stay in and be a huge part of. Still play at a good level, maybe go on to coach. John Paci, my special guest in the studio. Power Tennis, POWA website.
Yeah, so, Instagram's the best bet for us.
Okay.
Please, Power Instagram, Facebook. We do have a great website as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah, powertennis.com.au.
Talk to me about the coach collaboration space.
Yeah, so I think it needs to be mentioned. I know we're in an industry like all sport, especially once you start, bordering on the performance space, that it can be very gatekeepy, if that's a term, which is understandable. Coaches, want to protect their players. They want to keep them because, let's be honest, there's some people out there that will swoop in and try and take your athletes. But I don't know what the reason is. I feel like we're at a point right now where the collaboration between coaches and businesses, maybe the social media thing helps, is just at an all-time high. Like we've got, I think, maybe 3 of those players in our pro squad whose coaches have given them their blessing to come and do our squad, which for maybe some other clubs, I know in the past for me, that was unheard of. So it feels like coaches are pretty united at the moment with the common goal of just giving these young kids the best chance possible to have the best hit possible every day. And that seems to be outstanding at the moment.
John, we've got about a minute here, but what are the coaches talking about when you just go and have a coffee with another coach, just about our space here in Australia?
I think we're excited. We're clearly, Europe's leading the game. South America's doing very well. We're tucked away in the corner. But I think the more we draw influence from these countries and continue to develop as coaches, we continue to get excited. So excitement, and we're passionate.
The balance of competition, competing versus the technical side?
I always put competition and tactics over technical. That's a big part of my philosophy. I think being a pretty player is one thing. Being a good player is another thing. Rafa spent the 2-hour training session at the Oz Open with a water bottle in the corner of the court. And
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the best thing you do as a young kid, wouldn't you? Just go and watch the Nadal train.
That's it.
It's like a 5-hour match.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going at half rap power.
No, that's it. 100%.
John, thank you for coming in and sharing a little bit of wisdom with us tonight. I've got to get down and see you set up there in Rowville, so let's try and book a date before the year is out. And yeah, look, it's a great sport to be involved in, no doubt. And for any of the young aspiring players out there, keep dreaming. We said it off the top of the show last week when Nuno Borges in Bastad in Sweden last week beat Rafael Nadal on a clay court, the greatest clay court of all time. Anything can happen.
That's it.
Thanks,
God
John.
bless you.
Nice work.